I swear, one of my favorite parts about this movie is describing it to people that have never heard of it. Hello and welcome to Rotted Review of the Day, and today I am taking a look at the 2002 movie Bubba Ho-Tep. Now, if you've never heard of this movie, then buckle up, because this has a very, very silly premise. But what sets this movie apart and makes it great is the fact that it takes this silly premise and treats it with a sense of reverence and respect and winds up giving it a whole lot of heart and turning it into what would have been a farce and making it a really decent film. But if you haven't heard of it, then here we go. This follows the character of Elvis Presley, who it shows that back in the late 60s, early 70s, swapped identities with an Elvis impersonator by the name of Sebastian Haff. And that went about as well as you could imagine with how what we know as Elvis wound up. So Elvis has been forced to live as Sebastian Haff in his kind of Prince and the Pauper routine without being able to claim his own identity, and is now living as a nobody in a retirement home in East Texas. And also there is JFK, played by Ozzie Davis. And together they must team up to fight a ancient Egyptian mummy curse character. And that's the crux of the movie. That's the basic core of it, and the overall plot synopsis from a 5-mile overview. But like I said, what really gave this something special was how much heart they gave it. They really could have written off every single character in this one as a lark. And although it does have that sense of whimsy about it, it never takes it to the level of disrespecting it. One thing that I really thought was very unique about this movie is if you actually sat this down and showed it to an Elvis lover, I mean, the kind of person that's been to Graceland 12 times and has commemorative plates adorning their walls, they would find a movie that treats the Elvis character with a lot of love and respect and is showing him in very honest fashion, warts and all, and I really, really dug that. The character of JFK, played by Ozzie Davis, was a lot of fun and offered an interesting kind of counterpart to the Elvis situation, as Sebastian Haff, as the nurses know him, continues to claim that he is Elvis, just as everybody else in there is claiming to be somebody or another, but ultimately basically just not wanting to be alone. This offered a very, very heartbreaking and brutal look at life in a retirement home. And like I said, every aspect of this movie was treated with a lot of reverence. I'm going to go ahead and throw up all the scores here, and you can see that every category up to 25 points for a total possible score of 100 points, that overall this movie got some really high marks. And I think that that's due to the level of detail and depth that they give every aspect of this movie, from the characters to the setting to the situations to the interactions between the characters. All of this was really, really done phenomenally, and considering that it was just with such a silly concept, I really have to give it really high marks for the plot and the intent. This was the intent especially. This was entertaining. It was whimsical. It was sad. It was heartbreaking in places. It was also funny. The only thing that kind of prevented me from going higher than a 22 out of 25 is the fact that we are dealing with a mummy curse kind of situation, and the one thing that this movie really wasn't was that scary. It did have some kind of shocking moments in it, but nothing I would say that was scary in the slightest. But the acting was really, I think, one of the big standouts for this one. This movie conceptually was a water balloon placed gingerly on a bed of nails. Any misstep on the acting level would have completely destroyed everything about it. But Bruce Campbell playing Elvis / Sebastian Haff was, I think, the perfect choice. And yes, I am a Bruce Campbell fanboy, but it doesn't prevent me from being objective in my critique of him. If you, at some point in my life, I'm probably going to review My Name is Bruce, and I'm going to have a little bit less nice things to say about that one. But regardless, I really thought that he was the perfect choice as Elvis in this film. It did go into the use of internal monologue and voiceover in this movie that I know I rail on it sometimes when movies employ that, but I think it's less about the concept of voiceover and more about the execution. A lot of movies that employ voiceover forego the art of showing and not telling and providing information to the audience through subtle interactions between the characters, and instead rely entirely on voiceover exposition, and that is lazy. And this movie doesn't really do that. It does rely on that level of exposition to a small degree, but it is only one of the methods used in delivering information to the audience. It also has that character interaction. It also has that subtlety. It also has a lot of show don't tell, and the voiceover in this one, I think, provided a level of internal conflict and strife within the Elvis character that I think worked really well. Ossie Davis as JFK was a lot of fun. It was a bit of a lark, but it also added a level of sincerity and camaraderie with the Elvis character that I think was absolutely necessary, and Ossie Davis played it very, very well. Again, everybody took this very seriously, considering the silly subject matter, and it did have humor in it, but it was done in a very, the characters were serious. The characters were in the situation, even though it was silly at face value. And ultimately, it provided just a very different tone than the silly movies that the characters are in on the joke and playing it up to the screen. And I really, really prefer movies like this way more. The technical, I gave a 17 out of 25. It's still a somewhat high score, just lower than the rest. This has a very signature Don Coscarelli look to it and feel to it. And that's kind of, buyer's choice on whether or not that's something that you are on board with. He has a very unique signature style to him. The mummy effects were well done. The aging makeup, I think, is what kind of really drug this down just a little bit. I'm going to say it was well done, especially for the limited budget that they were working with. And there's really not a whole lot of makeup effects out there, practical effects, that are more difficult than proper aging, especially when you're not employing CG and it's all happening on camera. But I will say that in the right light, with the wrong movement and so forth, it did show itself a bit. But overall, I thought it was well done. It just, I'm not going to say that the technical score represents anything bad. It just wasn't quite on the same level as the genius behind the plot and the acting and the intention there. So that gives us a total score of 85 out of 100 points. If this had just been a silly, farcical romp with Bruce Campbell headlining, yeah, I still would have recommended it, but I don't think I would have recommended it as vehemently or with this high of a score. This is an honest, objective score that I have given this film, and I stand by it. This is absolutely worth watching. If you never have before, please give it a whirl. I think you'll be entertained at the very least. And then you can tell people with absolute honesty that you watched a movie about Elvis teaming up with JFK to battle a mummy in an East Texas retirement home, and it was actually a good movie to boot. So that should about do it for my review of 2002's Bubba Ho-Tep. I really thank you for joining me here today. Look forward to seeing you tomorrow. If you like these videos, please click like and subscribe. If you want to support me further, my Patreon link is below. Remember, next time you want to watch a horror movie, first make sure that it's good and rotted.